Things are not looking good for the Bad Batch. I've been a bit behind on covering the Bad Batch because of The Mandalorian, and at this point, many other YouTubers have probably uploaded their breakdowns of the Bad Batch this week, but I do think I've picked out a few key details that could be fresh insights for you. Episode 12 of The Bad Batch takes the squad to an island retreat where hopes for a stable future are just out of reach. Oh, and I think we were wrong about Fee. But before we jump into the video, there will be heavy spoilers for this week's episode of The Bad Batch titled Pabu, so proceed with caution. Now, before I forget, let me ask you to consider leaving a like for this video. Now, you don't have to do that right now, because how would you know if you like the video? We just started, but hear me out. Leave a like now before we both forget, and if you change your mind, you can always change your answer. With the cringy YouTuber plea of leaving a like out of the way, let's jump into today's video about the Bad Batch, because there is a lot to talk about in terms of what is next for the squad. Before I talk about the Bad Batch themselves though, I want to talk about our misunderstanding of Fee and why she represents everything they need right now. When she was introduced, I and many others were annoyed and even frustrated by her. We saw her as another version of Sid that just popped out of nowhere. We didn't trust her, and we found her over-the-top illusions of treasure-hunting grandeur annoying. And I've said it in previous videos, but I'll say it again. Hunter's journey in this season is a mirror of our own journey as the audience, but I'll come back to that in the next part of the video, so stick around. Fee is actually the character the Bad Batch has needed since the beginning. She completely contrasts Sid, who is clearly no good for the Batch. Where Sid sends the Bad Batch on missions to line her pockets, Fee joins the Bad Batch on missions that ultimately benefit others. We learned this when we arrive on Pabu and learned that Fee collects treasured artifacts to preserve the cultures of the variety of refugees seeking haven on Pabu. She also takes an interest in the Bad Batch members as humans. Let me point out one detail that the show uses to subtly display the contrast between Sid and Fee. So if you remember, Sid often calls Tech Goggles, where Fee calls him Brown Eyes. One is a reference to Tech's humanity, and the other is just Sid being a bully. Fee's care for the Bad Batch is realized even more when we learn that she has never brought anyone else to Pabu with her before. So there were many other moments that distinguished Fee from Sid in this episode, but I want to talk about Hunter now. So leave a comment below pointing out any other differences you noticed between Fee and Sid. Now, I truly believe that we as the audience are meant to identify with Hunter throughout this season. Now, I'm not saying that you can't identify with other characters in the show, but what I mean is that there has been a parallel with our general audience experience of the show and Hunter's story as a character in the show. Let's talk about Hunter's motives, fears, and frustrations, and I think you'll start to see what I mean. Hunter is primarily motivated to seek stability and the safety for his squad. Whenever he gets a glimpse of Omega being a kid for once, we see the joy in his eyes, but it's kind of a hesitant joy because he knows that there is a few things, some ghosts of the past, preventing this being a permanent joy for Omega. You know what? I bet even the staunchiest Omega haters are even glad to see her get the opportunity to be a kid. I think I would argue that most of why people find Omega annoying is because she is a kid who is where she doesn't belong, on the run from the evil empire. That's a venue reserved for battle-hardened war heroes, not annoying kids. So she's out of place, and I think that makes us as the audience perhaps a little bit more annoyed with her. While we connect with the desire for the Bad Batch to escape the clutches of the Empire and the exploitation of Sid, we also feel drawn to the action, just like Hunter. It's no secret that some of the best episodes of the Bad Batch have been the ones that deal with the treachery of the Empire towards clones. We're drawn to that fight, and I think Hunter is too. Though Hunter is first concerned for the safety of his squad, I think he's also feeling a slight nagging pull to play a role in getting involved with what Rex and Echo are doing. I made a video way back at the beginning of the season predicting that Echo would leave the Bad Batch, and I don't think that Hunter will leave the Bad Batch, but I do think that he's feeling that same underlying pull to get involved with the fight against the Empire like Echo was. So Hunter's torn. He wants stability for those he cares about, but he knows there are some ghosts of their past that must be dealt with before that can truly happen. And we as the audience know that too. That's probably why you held all of the things that Pabu had to offer at arm's length, just like Hunter did. But Hunter missed a key foreshadowing detail that we may have missed as well. Now, I'm no tsunami expert, but tsunamis typically send multiple tidal waves. It's not difficult to imagine that a second wave of danger then is approaching Pabu. Now, for the sake of storytelling and foreshadowing, I don't think a literal second wave of this tsunami is going to hit Pabu. I think this is foreshadowing that most likely another wave of danger, the Empire, will arrive on Pabu and disrupt the Bad Batch's temporary solitude from the world. As it stands, the clone Commandos led by Scorch, man, it's been really cool to see him canonized and getting more of a story in Star Wars. We should continue streaming Republic Commando. Anyways, I digress. As it stands, the clone Commandos led by Scorch have been tasked with finding Omega and bringing her back to Mount Tantis. So the second wave of danger will probably be the Empire arriving, sacking Pabu, and kidnapping Omega. And my guess is Sid will probably be the key in the Empire's efforts to locate Omega. When this happens, Tech, Wrecker, and Hunter will obviously leap into action to save her. And it seems that the formula for these rescue mission stories involves seeking help from pre-established characters, so I wonder if the Bad Batch will reach out to Echo and Rex for help finding Omega. I can even see them bringing Cody back into the story as someone who has more recent information on Imperial codes and procedures and such. He could be a valuable asset in storming Mount Tantis. There are lots of theories swirling around about who, if any of the members of the Bad Batch, are going to be killed off in this season. And quite frankly, I haven't been convinced that any of them are going to be killed off. I've seen a lot of people say that because they're developing Tech's character, he'll be killed off, but I'm just not sure. After all, this is a kids show in many ways, so I do think that they'll opt for maybe a lighter ending for some of the characters like Tech. However, I do see a great sacrifice from someone like Crosshair in the cards, since he is at Mount Tantis and Omega will clearly end up there at some point. I think he might make a sacrifice to get her out. It'd be full circle. Remember, Omega was key in Crosshair escaping Kamino or surviving Kamino at the end of season 1. And think about it, if he sacrificed himself for her, it would certainly complete his character arc in a really good way. But I do also think that Crosshair has plenty more story opportunity, so maybe his sacrifice won't necessarily be one that results in his death, but maybe he gives up the opportunity to be able to escape the Empire so that Omega can escape. This could lead to a season 3 story where Crosshair is still with the Empire, but this time it's against his will. Perhaps they've planted a new chip or turned him into a Phase 0 Dark Trooper. I don't know, there's still a lot of mystery there. Okay, but hear me out actually on this. What if it's not Crosshair that remains with the Empire? What if it's Hunter who sacrifices himself so that Omega and Crosshair and the rest of the Bad Batch, whoever ends up at Mount Tantis, can escape? And then the season 3 story is actually about Hunter being with the Empire against his will, and perhaps it's Hunter that is turned into some sort of Phase 0 Dark Trooper or something like that. I think that would be really interesting because then we have a season 3 now where Crosshair is with the Bad Batch and we get to see him reconcile his relationship with his brothers and with Omega, and I think it would provide a different dynamic than we've gotten in season 1 and season 2. Let me know what you think. Who's more likely to sacrifice themselves at the end of this season, Crosshair or Hunter? That's all I have today. Leave a comment below. I try to be as active in the comments as my time allows. It really is an important part of YouTube for me. And don't forget to leave a like on the way out, and I'll catch you in the next video. May the Force be with you.